In another episode, we briefly discussed that the saint in Ibn Arabi's dictionary is a broad term encompassing both prophets and messengers. Thus, it can be said that the saint is the widest concept comprising prophets and messengers, with prophet encompassing messenger and messenger being the most specific. Every messenger is also a prophet and every prophet is a saint, though this relationship does not apply in reverse. We have also discussed that the ultimate human attainment is sainthood, or walaya. The saint, or wali, represents the pinnacle of knowledge of God and, according to Ibn Arabi, of the fundamental nature of existence. In other words, the saint epitomizes the perfect human itself.
In this episode, we are going to scrutinize Ibn Arabi's perspective and elucidation on sainthood, encompassing prophethood and messengerhood. If you enjoy this video, please like and share. You can also help me out monetarily, be it PayPal or Patreon. Thank you so much for your support.
Quote, "The specific names prophet and messenger do not apply to God because the servant does not want to share a name with his Lord. Hence, God is not called by prophet or messenger, but is named friend, Saint Wali, and described by that name. Hence he said, God is the friend, Wali, of the believers, and he is the friend, the praiseworthy." Ibn Arabi emphasizes that Wali is one of the divine names. In this regard, when a person's knowledge of God reaches its zenith, he too may rightfully be called by this name. He becomes a Wali. However, he, deeply aware of their servant status, ubudiyya, often refrains from openly embracing this title. He maintains that Wali rightfully belongs solely to God, and that assuming this title implies a transcendence of their servant status into a position of lordship, whether he desires it or not. It is due to the fact that a mystic, completely immersed in al-haq, loses consciousness of his own servitude, thus transcending it. Quote, "This name, Wali, never ends and is applied to God's servants in this world and the world to come. Because of the end of prophecy and mission, no name has remained which is specifically applied to the servant and not to God. It is noteworthy that since Wali is a name shared by both God and human being, the concept of walaya, sainthood, persists perpetually. Just as God's existence is eternal, so too is the state of sainthood. As long as there exists even one individual possessing the utmost spiritual power who attains the status of sainthood, and indeed, such a spiritual individual always emerges in every era, the essence of sainthood remains preserved. In contrast, prophethood and messengerhood are influenced by historical circumstances and can therefore cease entirely. It is a historical fact that the lineage of prophethood concluded with Muhammad, recognized as the final prophet and the seal of prophets. Following Muhammad, there is no longer a prophet who simultaneously serves as a Sharia giver, Mushari. Instead, what remains, according to Ibn Arabi, is what he terms general prophethood, nubuwa amma, prophethood without the establishment of a legal framework, essentially equating to sainthood. Quote, "Because of the end of prophecy and mission, no name has remained which is specifically applied to the servant and not to God. However, God still assists his servants by leaving to them general prophecy in which there is no institution of law. The roles of the prophet and the messenger are intrinsically connected to the earthly realm. Their duties revolve around worldly affairs, as the legal framework always aims to regulate life on earth with the ultimate goal of securing eternal happiness in the afterlife. In contrast, sainthood lacks such inherent ties to the present world. Therefore, prophethood and messengerhood can disappear. Nonetheless, the quality of sainthood remains constant. Those who lose the titles of prophethood and messengerhood immediately assume the quality of sainthood. Furthermore, since there is no need for legal framework in the hereafter, anyone who is a prophet and a messenger in the present world will continue to exist in the hereafter with the quality of sainthood. Quote, "The position of the messenger and the law-giving prophet derives from sainthood and knowledge. Do you not see that God ordered the prophet to seek increase in knowledge and not in anything else? Hence he said, ordering him, and say, 'O my Lord, increase my knowledge.' That is because you know that the law means the obligation to perform specific acts and the prohibition to perform others, and the place of this obligation is this world which will come to an end. However, sainthood is not like an obligation, because if it had been terminated, it would have been terminated because of itself, just as the mission ended because of itself. Had sainthood been terminated because of itself, its name would not have remained. But the name Saint remains God's name, and this name is assimilated and realized by His servants and is associated with them."
As we observed, since the term sainthood holds the broadest scope and serves as a fundamental foundation, neither prophets nor messengers can emerge without the quality of sainthood being initially established. It is important to note that a prophet is essentially a saint with the additional trait of possessing specific knowledge about the unknown and unseen. Similarly, a messenger is a saint who, in addition to sainthood and prophethood, is conscious of the duty and ability to deliver divine messages to their followers.
It is significant to remember that sainthood is the most fundamental and widely applicable attribute among all types of perfect humans, and hence, the initial requirement for one to achieve the status of a perfect human being is to reach the level of a saint. Sainthood entails a profound knowledge of al-haq, the whole cosmos, and their relationship. A person attaining sainthood recognizes himself as a manifestation of al-haq, essentially one with him. Moreover, he perceives that all phenomena are manifestations of al-haq. This awareness reflects the concept of the unity of being, wahdatul wujud. Achieving this consciousness requires complete immersion and self-annihilation, or fana, in al-haq. Through this process, the individual transforms his perception and immediate tasting, dawk, and thus he gains direct insight into reality. Self-annihilation is thus a crucial aspect of sainthood, representing the first essential attribute of the saint. Ibn Arabi outlines 3 stages of self-annihilation. The first, called takalluk, involves the mystic relinquishing his human attributes and embodying the divine attributes. The second stage, tahakkuk, entails the mystic realizing his oneness with al-haq, with his essence being absorbed into the divine presence. The final stage, ta'alluq, involves the mystic maintaining a steadfast connection to sainthood, walaya. This state corresponds to self-subsistence, baqa, after self-annihilation, fana. In this state, the mystic regains his self within the divine presence, devoid of personal ego, with all actions perceived as al-haq's manifestations. Briefly stated, sainthood arises from such self-annihilation experiences, granting the saint a profound consciousness of unity with al-haq, witnessing all creation merging into the divine life. At its pinnacle, the saint is arguably identical with the divine consciousness. This individual represents the utmost in knowledge. Naturally, he is inclined towards profound silence, as the deepest truths he comprehends are beyond verbal expression. Quote, "Some others among us know, but say nothing at all, and this is the best reaction. Knowledge causes them to be silent, not incapable. One who is silent is the best knower of God. This knowledge belongs only to the seal of messengers and the seal of God's friends, or saints. It forms the foundational basis upon which sainthood stands. Prophethood is then built upon this foundation with an additional attribute, and messengerhood further builds upon prophethood. Essentially, the prophet embodies both sainthood and prophethood, while the messenger encompasses sainthood, prophethood, and messengerhood. Consequently, a prophet combines two ranks within one individual, whereas a messenger combines three distinct ranks.
The most controversial issue revolves around the status of sainthood. Ibn Arabi disagrees with certain Sufis who elevate sainthood above prophethood and messengerhood. He asserts that sainthood can be considered superior to prophethood and messengerhood when all these ranks exist simultaneously within one individual.
Quote, "When one and the same person unites in him these two or three qualifications, the man in the capacity of a knower or saint is more complete and more perfect than himself in the capacity of a messenger or in that of a man who has instituted a divine law, that is, a prophet. If you hear one of the people of God saying or transmitting to you the notion that sainthood is higher than prophecy, he adds nothing to what we have said. Or if he says that the saint is above the prophet and the messenger, he means by this the qualities of one person, that is, the messenger Muhammad as a saint, is more complete than that of a prophet messenger. This does not mean that the saint who follows the prophet is higher than the prophet, for the follower never attains the rank of the one he follows in the way in which he follows him, because if he had attained his rank, he would not have been his follower. So understand this. Further, there are also differences among messengers' ranks, which arise from the fact that messengerhood comprises three distinct qualities. While all messengers share equality in terms of their sainthood, they inevitably differ due to their unique engagements with the specific circumstances of their era and place. This holds true for prophets as well. The circumstances, both material and spiritual, of the place to which a messenger belongs significantly influence his nature and rank. Similarly, the degree of a prophet's knowledge profoundly impacts his rank.
We have in another episode explored that the perfect human at the cosmic level serves as God's Khalifa or vicegerent. This similarly applies to the perfect human at the individual level.
At the individual level, the embodiment of the perfect human encompasses the saint, prophet, and messenger. These three qualities act as God's Khalifa, vicegerent, because they epitomize the most complete and perfect loci of Al-Haq's manifestation on earth. They tangibly represent the reality of Muhammad, which we have also discussed in another episode. However, the term Khalifa, meaning vicegerent, carries some ambiguity since it is commonly associated with the political leader of the Muslim community, namely the Caliph. Considering this ambiguity, Ibn Arabi makes a clear distinction between two types of vicegerents. Firstly, Khalifatullah, the vicegerent of God. Secondly, Khalifatur Rasul, the vicegerent or successor of the messenger. The term Khalifa, as understood in the context of the perfect human, differs significantly from the Caliph, the historical and political leader of the Muslim community, who also bears the same title, Khalifa. Quote, "God has in the earth vicegerents who are the messengers. At present, vicegerency derives from the messengers and not from God. They judge only according to what the messenger promulgated to them and do not violate his rules. However, here is a subtle issue which only people like us know, that is, learning the judgments in keeping with the messenger's legal way. The messenger's vicegerent is the one who learns judgments from the transmitted traditions from the messenger or by applying the method of personal efforts, the authority of which is also transmitted from the messenger. Among us are some who learn from God, hence they are God's vicegerents through the same criterion, and the content of the rules they receive is the same as that which the messenger received from God. Thus, seen outwardly, they are followed by others, because they do not contradict the messenger's judgment, like Jesus when he will come down and judge, and like Muhammad in God saying, "Those are the people whom God has guided, so follow their guidance." Concerning what he knows about the way of learning, the follower is distinguished and successful, and he is like the prophet, who followed the messengers who preceded him. So we follow him, because he established the rule of following the preceding messengers, and not because of the rules of the messengers who preceded him. In like manner, the vicegerent's learning from God is the same as the messenger's learning from God. Speaking from the perspective of revelation, he is God's vicegerent, and with respect to the outward realm, he is the messenger's vicegerent. For this reason, the messenger died without appointing a vicegerent. He did not appoint a vicegerent, knowing that in his community was one who would take the vicegerency from his Lord. Thus, he would be a vicegerent of God accepting the existing laws. Briefly, Ibn Arabi suggests that there are instances where a caliph, serving as a successor to the messenger, that is, Khalifatul Rasul, has a direct connection with the source of the messenger's knowledge, that is, al-haq. This caliph may govern the community based on an inner law received directly from al-haq.
In other words, such a caliph is outwardly called the vicegerent of the messenger, but inwardly called the vicegerent of God. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.